Hello YouTube and welcome to an all new Elder Scrolls lore video. Today we're talking about some lore from one of the older Elder Scrolls installments, Battlespire. And we're talking about the Battlespire itself, what it was, how it came to be and what its ultimate fate was. However, before we begin, I could not for the life of me get this really old game to work on my really modern PC, so I had to watch a lot of raw gameplay footage online, and I got most of the images in this video from other internet sources, so when applicable look in the corner of the image for any credits at the beginning when they appear. Anyway, let's immediately get into it. So, the Battlespire. For starters, the Battlespire is an Imperial Academy of Magic, which specifically educates primarily Imperial High Battle Mages and prospects for the Imperial Shadow Legion, which is the former bodyguard unit of the Emperor during the Septim days. The Shadow Legion, while highly skilled, has always been slightly overshadowed by the Blades, who also have the task to guard the Dragonborn Emperors, but unlike the Blades, the Shadow Legion is officially part of the Imperial Armed Forces and is also used to guard other important figures around the Empire when the Emperor commands them to do so, such as lower members of the royal family or Imperial representatives around the provinces, something which the Blades doesn't do because they only serve the Dragonborn. Each member of the Shadow Legion has to have undergone a proving of their cunning and their magical and physical prowess in a special tournament hosted inside the Battlespire. Only those who came in first and second in this yearly tournament were allowed to join the Shadow Legion, with other prospects either having to wait until the next tournament or take other positions within the Empire's military. So far, pretty normal institution. Well, here comes the interesting part. The Battlespire is not some regular building as you've seen in the images. The Battlespire is an institution based on a large floating rock located somewhere in a pocket dimension, located somewhere between Mundus, Aetherius and Oblivion. In short, Mundus is the mortal plane, so the plane where Tamriel and all the other continents are located in. Aetherius is the plane where all Magicka comes from and souls return to after perishing on Tamriel. Sovngarde is also located in Aetherius. And the stars and sun are holes in the mortal plane which make Aetherius visible to mortals and makes it so that magic can enter our world from Aetherius into Mundus through the stars and the sun. And finally, Oblivion is the place where all the Daedric princes have their planes of existence. Anyway, this pocket realm located between Mundus, Aetherius and Oblivion has sometimes been called the Slipstream, and so I will do so as well in this video. The reason this location is used for the training of powerful Imperial War Mages and members of the Shadow Legion is because due to its location close to Oblivion, it provides easy access to the realms of Oblivion from the Battlespire for training and experimentation purposes. Specifically, it gives access easily to the Soul Cairn, the Chimera of Desolation, the Shade Perilous and the Havoc Wellhead, realms of Oblivion, which were easily accessible from the Battlespire, with Mehrunes Dagon's realm of the Deadlands also being relatively easy to reach from the Battlespire, and other realms also being far easier to reach from the Battlespire than from Tamriel, but they were a bit harder to reach compared to the specific realms that I named earlier. It's been suggested that during their training, the mages that are trained there, so not the Shadow Legion, underwent trials in which they had to go through several realms of Oblivion and do some sort of proving there. Anyway, while Aetherius seems to be inaccessible from the Battlespire, it has been suggested that its closeness to Aetherius does provide it with an abundance of magicka, making advanced experimental magic easier there than on Tamriel. That is why next to a training facility for the Shadow Legion, the Battlespire also functions as an experimentation ground for Imperial sanctioned mages wanting to do magical research or research inside a realm of Oblivion. It is said that the regular mortals who reside in a realm of Oblivion for too long, however, eventually turn insane, but something interesting is that the Battlespire, being in a slipstream realm between the mortal realm, Oblivion and Aetherius, does not seem to affect the mental state of those inside. On the contrary even, as by residing inside the Battlespire for a while, it's noted that mortal minds can adjust themselves to being in other realms while still partly under the mortal plane's influence. This means that in addition to Oblivion being more easily accessible from the Battlespire, it's also possible to do more long-term research inside Oblivion without damaging your mind if you use the Battlespire as your point of departure and re-entry into Mundus, as your mind can acclimate to the different realms. But since the Battlespire is not located on Mundus, getting there is not as simple as just going into the College of Winterhold. You can just show a weak spell and walk over a bridge. No. The Battlespire is located in the Slipstream, which is only accessible through the so-called Pillar of Light, a portal of sorts located somewhere on Tamriel. We don't know exactly where it is, but some have theorized that it may be somewhere in Craglorn or perhaps near the coast of Hammerfell. It's also theorized that there may be more Pillars of Light around Tamriel, which are probably closely guarded by the Empire. For example, some think that both the White Gold Tower and the Arcane University at one point might have had Pillars of Light, but this one that you see on screen is the only one that we have confirmation of. And as you can see from the surroundings, it's kind of deserty, so that's why people have guessed Craglorn or Coast of Hammerfell. Anyway, the Pillars of Light take those stepping into it to the Weir Gate, the main entrance of the Battlespire, where re-entry into Mundus happens. This is the most conventional way of getting in. However, there is another way to get back to Mundus from the Battlespire, specifically by flying. It's been suggested that one would be able to leave the Battlespire on the back of a dragon, flying back down to Tamriel, and by using a magical airship called the Star Galley, which is able to reach Tamriel by flight as well, through Magicka streams which it sails on. Although it was likely normally only used to explore the direct surroundings of the Battlespire inside the Pocket Realm to, for example, make repairs outside, as we know that the Star Galley has not been used for a very long time to get to Tamriel. The fact that one could fly down to Tamriel, however, could mean that the Battlespire is located somewhere really high up in the air, so high up that one partially leaves the bounds of Mundus and enters that Slipstream realm, but at the same time, if one fell from the Battlespire, one would not land back on Tamriel, so it's possible that the fact that the dragons could fly down to Tamriel simply has to do with the specific properties of the dragons, and that the Star Galley was made with similar properties in mind, as it follows those Magicka streams down. Anyway, exactly how or why the Battlespire was created is unknown, but what we do know is that it's being held in place by 5 mighty Magicka anchors, which are tethered on locations in Tamriel. They are invisible to mortals on Tamriel, and we don't know exactly how these Magicka anchors work, but without the anchors the Battlespire would be doomed and be adrift in the Slipstream realm, as the anchors on Tamriel are connected to anchors on the Battlespire, which are connected to each other by Magicka streams, which the Star Galley seems to have used these Magicka streams to drift back to Tamriel when it flies back to Tamriel. Something we do sort of know is that the Battlespire likely came into use by the mages during the Riemann Empire days, so that's the late First Era. Some have also theorized online that the anchors that keep the Battlespire in place were the first thing to be constructed on Tamriel, and then the people built the Battlespire on Tamriel, and subsequently using the power of the anchors and the Magicka streams to lift the Battlespire up into the Slipstream. That is one of the theories of its creation, and it states that the Battlespire was created during the Riemann Empire days and was not originally intended to be a training and experimentation ground for battle mages, but rather a launch platform for the Riemann Empire to explore other realms, as the emperors at the time had a fascination with exploring other realms, almost like a space program. Those explorers that they sent up were even called menonauts, like astronauts. The theory states that after this quote-unquote space program was dissolved, the Imperial Battle Mages then claimed the facility to use it as an academy and experimentation ground and training facility, due to its special properties. So that's after the Menonauts abandoned it. Another theory states that the Battlespire was already there, or at least the rock that it's located on, which is shaped like a dragon ironically, was discovered by accident by the Imperial Menonauts, who tried to explore other realms, who then colonized the rock for the Empire. Whether the rock was already dragon-shaped or whether it was done later then is unknown. In my opinion, the first theory is a bit more likely, but let me know what you think, as we don't have any solid answers to what the exact origins of the Battlespire is. Anyway, after the Battlespire came into the hands of Imperial mages, the Spire came under the control of the Spire Council, which are the 5 most important mages present in the Spire. They make day-to-day decisions over the goings-on in the Battlespire, and they answer to the Imperial government. as the government funds the Battlespire, and the Spire reportedly relies on the Imperial government for its steady stream of recruits and, more importantly, resources, as beside the rock that the Spire is located on, there's nothing of note in the slipstream realm, so food and clean water, for example, apparently all are transported from Tamriel into the slipstream using the Weir Gate and the Pillar of Light. So, I already told you of how the facility is a proving ground and training ground for the Imperial Shadow Legion, but that's only a fraction of its use, as like I said, the primary function is the education of Imperial battle mages to assist the Imperial Legion. For their education prospects, they are delivered to them to the Spire by the Imperial government between the ages of 10 and 12, so that those are very magical potent children. After which they're trained and kept in the Battlespire until deployment. In the Elder Scrolls Online Blackwood chapter we even have two of these battle mages, one full battle mage and one potential, which is the name for a mage in training in the Spire. This potential, Luciana Caprania, can even become a house guest with some really interesting dialogue on the Battlespire. From our dialogue we can discern that the Battlespire is also used to talk to Lower Dremora and apparently learn from Lower Dremora, and that the Spire is equipped with a large array of places to study in isolation, although potentials are kept on a very harsh schedule during their studies. We also know that there's a grand library and study halls and everything required to educate the new generation of battle mages. Something else that's interesting about the Battlespire is that the mages inside do not keep Tamrielic hours. Their sleep rhythm is not based on the Tamrielic night and day, but has seemingly been pushed into optimal hours. The potentials, which after years of training, when they are finally allowed to leave the Battlespire again and return to the mortal plane, have great trouble adjusting to Tamrielic hours apparently, and often barely remember what the sun and the moons look like, as neither are present in the slipstream, since it's outside of the mortal realm. That said, at the end of the Second Era, when the Septim Empire was formed, the Battlespire came under the control of the Septim Emperors, and they initiated the practice of partially training members of the Shadow Legion at the Spire, next to the training of battle mages. That was its original program for years and years and years until the Septims came along. But it was also during the Septim days that the Battlespire eventually came to its end, as during the Imperial Simulacrum, which is the events of the Elder Scrolls I Arena, when the treacherous battle mage Jaegar Tharn betrayed Emperor Uriel Septim VII, imprisoning him somewhere in Oblivion, and taking the Emperor's appearance in order to grab power over the Empire itself. Nobody really knew that this had happened, and that Jaegar Tharn had impersonated the Emperor, and everybody just assumed that Emperor Uriel was still with them, but this was just Jaegar Tharn in disguise. You solved this entire situation in the Elder Scrolls I Arena, but during this period, Jaegar Tharn did fear the battle mages of the Battlespire, specifically the powerful Spire Council, which are 5 of the most powerful mages around the world, or well, outside of the world at that point. So he made a deal with Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric prince. If Dagon eliminated the Spire Council and all other mages inside, Mehrunes Dagon could have the Battlespire. Dagon, who didn't really knew of the Battlespires existence prior to this, agreed, as he saw it as a perfect launch platform for his own invasion of Mundus, the mortal realm, since the slipstream was a realm between Mundus, Aetherius and Oblivion, so Mehrunes Dagon overran the Battlespire to occupy it as a sort of way forward fortress to eventually invade Mundus. There's some tragic accounts left to read in the Battlespire as you make your way through the game, from people trying to defend it, as slowly the minions of Mehrunes Dagon came out of the Void Gates and completely overwhelmed the mages. The mages were stronger than the minions, but the minions had far greater numbers, and the minions of Mehrunes Dagon had sealed away the Weir Gate so that nobody could leave the Battlespire to ask for reinforcements from Tamriel. Slowly, the entire Battlespire was overran. One battle mage named Samar Starlover tried to escape the Spire on the back of a friendly dragon, which was, by the way, one of the very few dragons left in the world, and was actually there to help the mages in their research. An interesting case. But that dragon was killed by Dagon's minions before Starlover could escape on his back, and Samar Starlover died by the friendly dragon's side, after being completely overran by Mehrunes Dagon's minions. This is where the plot of Battlespire picks up. You're a prospect for the Imperial Shadow Legion, and you have no idea of the carnage that is taking place inside the Battlespire, as again nobody could leave to tell anyone on Tamriel about it. You pass through the Pillar of Light to enter your proving, and then walk through the Weir Gate, because it turns out that the gate is only sealed in one direction, as the entry is still possible from Tamriel. But also there's no way back for you to get back to Tamriel because the gate is sealed. So you venture forth, and in the end you manage to free the Battlespire from its occupying forces and banish Maroon's Dagon in his own realm of oblivion, putting him out of commission for at least some time, allowing you to return to Tamriel. But after this invasion, the Battlespire was severely damaged, so severely that the commission created by the Emperor to assess the damages straight up recommended to abandon the Battlespire, as repairing it and training new personnel to head it would be such a massive investment that the Empire could not afford to pay it, and should rather divert its resources to keeping the Empire together after the chaos that Jaeger Tharn's rule had caused across the provinces. But even if they had diverted their resources to repairing the Battlespire, it wouldn't have nearly been as useful to the mages as before, as according to a man who ventured secretly into the Battlespire through one of its still functioning pillars of light, all links to Oblivion inside the Battlespire were broken after the invasion, and no portals to any Oblivion realms remained open, or were able to be opened again. So while the Shattered Academy still remained accessible and he could walk through the ruins, it was no longer as useful as the interplane exploration point, and because none of it was possible anymore. Anyway, that was all I can tell you about the Battlespire, a topic I often wanted to get into but never really did because I couldn't get the game working, but again, with a lot of effort in my holiday, I managed to get everything that I needed at least. But since the Elder Scrolls Online mentioned the Battlespire again last year, it seemed time, as I would not be surprised if a new Elder Scrolls Online chapter next year, or maybe the year after, takes us to the Battlespire. Anyway, if it happens, I called it. And with that, I hope you learned something today about the Elder Scrolls lore. But before I end the video, as usual, allow me to say that I hope to see you again in the next Elder Scrolls lore video next week. And allow me to thank my top Patreon supporters, Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, Polarized Putin, Athena Iotis, King Chris, Crab of the Scrolls, Doji, Fenrir, Sword of Bushido, Sar Mikal, and Mr. Christmas. It's thanks to all these people and all the others on screen that this channel stays alive, and for that I am very grateful. That said, I hope to see you all in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.